Hey folks, welcome back to Painting with Victor. I appreciate you joining me today in the studio here, just starting to work on a bunch of paintings. And I'm going to be doing a series of videos on the painting process, or my painting process. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that. I am starting to work on several paintings for an art exhibition that's coming up the months of July through September down St. Simon's Island, and I'm real excited about that. And I'm gonna be including some of my older works that I have, but I'm working on some new stuff too. I traditionally paint seascapes, landscapes, marshland, stuff like that. Of course, it's being the coast, I wanted it to kind of be themed around coastal Georgia, but I'll probably have a couple other paintings in there that are not my traditional style, or won't say style, but my traditional theme that I like to paint. But today I wanted to talk a little bit about something that I use in my painting process, and that's a painting planner. It's a page that I got from another artist. His name is Dan Scott, and he has a website called Draw Paint Academy. I'll put a link below so you can go out and check out his site and everything. But it's a great worksheet for you, so as you begin your painting, you kind of plan things out, and as you do so, and if you follow this, I believe your paintings are going to come out so much better. At least mine has, in the things that I've done. Okay, so I'm going to go through the list here for you. The first thing is, what is the big idea or the focal point? So what is it you want the focal point to be in your painting? Is it a sunset? Is it the clouds? Is it a boat on the water? But you got to decide on what that focal point is. So what is it you're in your painting that you want your audience or your client that purchases the painting to focus in on, And so when you're creating your painting, you want things to kind of point in that direction. It may be water leading up to that. It may be how the landscape, maybe it's mountains, and the mountains are kind of going down to one angle, and it's forcing people to look kind of to their right, and you have something in that painting that you want them to see. But that's the number one thing, is what is the big idea? What is your focal point? The second thing is, are there any other key features? Maybe there's something in this photo reference that you're using, or the composition that you came up to, that will help point the viewer to that focal point. Maybe it's the trees and the slope of the trees, from tall trees going down to smaller trees, and it could be on both sides, and they're coming down, and it's leading the viewer's eyes down toward wherever that focal point is. Maybe it's the mountains that do that. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's buildings that if you're doing a cityscape, maybe it's some buildings that are moving in that direction. So think about what the other key features are. The next thing is what is your overall strategy? In other words, how will you paint the subject? Okay, and also in what order of the parts of the painting that you're going to paint. One of the things I like to do too, and part of my painting process, is I'll sketch out in my little sketchbook the composition. Okay. A lot of artists use little thumbnail sketches. They may have 2 or 3 reference photos, and from that, they kind of come up with some compositions, and they'll do 2 or 3 or 4, and then they'll pick the best one. Okay. So what I like to do is, when I do that, is I start identifying on that sketch the various parts or areas that I want to focus on in painting the picture. I usually start with the sky. So what is in the sky? Clouds, that kind of thing, maybe some birds, whatever. But I'll list out, okay, sky's number 1. So I always start with what's furthest away, and your sky is the furthest thing away. And then I start moving toward the front and what's in the foreground. And I may end up identifying 5 or 6 different key areas that I need to focus on. Maybe it's some trees that are kind of in the middle at the horizon. Maybe it's, the marsh. Maybe there's some water that's leading up to where my focal point is. So that's an area that I need to focus in on. There might be some marsh on my left side or on my right side. And so, that's that's 2 areas that I need to focus in on. So I'll even draw that out with like a red marker on my sketch pad, and then I'll number them, and then I'll come down to my little worksheet in my sketch pad and say, okay, number 1 is sky. Okay, number 2 is going to be trees and distance, and number 3 might be some water, and 4 is a boat, and 5 is this, and 6 is that, and so I listed it all out. Okay, then I also kind of look at what colors I'm going to need. And I'll talk about that in just a minute, but I kind of get that idea down as to what are the pieces and parts that are going to make up this painting. The next thing you want to ask is, can you see the subject as a finished painting? What does a finished painting look like? You have to visualize in your mind what it is you're going to be painting. You've got some photo references, and you may be using 3 photo references, okay? And you may have them up on your computer screen to give you an idea, okay? But then you're painting from your sketch, okay? And as you do that, you want to visualize in your mind what this completed project is going to look like, okay? After I've got everything painted, it's all in place, can I see it as a finished product or a finished painting? Can I see it hanging on somebody's wall? Can I see it in the picture frame? Okay. A couple of things. One of the things I'll just throw out here, it kind of comes to mind, is that there's a scripture in the Bible that says, where there is no vision, the people perish. Well, I'm going to change that around a little bit and say, where there is no vision, your painting perishes. Okay. You have to visualize in your mind what that painting's going to look like. Okay. That finished product. And as you go through your painting process, and as you're putting paint onto the canvas and your brush strokes and everything, is what you're doing in line with what you're visualizing in your mind. Okay. All right. So the next one is what colors do you need on your palette? So I kind of alluded to that just a minute ago in my process and listing out, starting with the sky, and there's some clouds, and then I'll go things the furthest away in the distance and everything, and maybe it's some trees way off in the distance, maybe it's some mountains that are in the distance and everything. And so as I label everything out, then I start looking at, well, what colors do I need? You might start with just a plain primary, 3 primary colors, the yellow, the blue, and the red. From that, you can mix just about everything. Have some white on your palette. Some people like to use black, even though you can make your own black with a combination of ultramarine blue and some burnt umber. You want to do that. But maybe you need some other colors. Maybe you need some warmer colors, additional warmer colors, additional cool colors. But you kind of start, and that's what I do with this plan that I've come up with in my sketch pad, is I'll say, okay, sky, well, what is my sky color going to be? Maybe I'm going to use ultramarine blue, okay? Maybe I'm going to add a little red to it. Maybe I need, okay, well, that's cad red or whatever red that you prefer, okay? Maybe it's cerulean blue, maybe it's Prussian blue, whatever. I identify what colors that I'm going to need. So that helps me and it saves me a lot of time too, that when I have this game plan, because I'll have everything listed out, all 6 or 7 different areas. And with that, I'll identify, well, what colors do I need? So you got to study all this out in your mind, get it all worked out, and put it on paper, and that's your game plan. Okay. All right. And as you identify, well, what colors you need, can I mix from these 3 primary colors the color that I'm looking for? Okay. Sometimes I'll take some black and some sap green and make a darker green color, especially for shadows and foliage and trees. Do I need some yellow ochre on there, in your palette? All that kind of stuff. But you have to be able to see that color and kind of recognize, what colors do I need to mix to get to that. One of the things that you could do is that hopefully folks have created a color mixing chart. That's another video that I plan to do too, is creating color mixing charts. And it's like you can use that with reds, you can use it with blues. If you use different blues on your palette, maybe you do a Prussian blue, a phthalo blue, and ultramarine blue. What happens if I mix a cad red with each one of those and add some white to it? You're gonna get different shades of purple. Okay, and so if you've got these color mixing charts, and when you start looking at this photo reference, maybe it's something from memory too, and you did something out in the field as a plein air, and you just studied that area and you're very familiar with it. It allows you to kind of look and say, okay, these are the colors I need. How am I going to mix those colors? If you got that color mixing chart, it's a no-brainer. You can go right to that and use it and says, oh, okay, well, that's a combination of maybe it's cad yellow with a little cad red with a little white, and maybe I might need to add a little yellow ochre to that. I'm just throwing something out there, but it allows you, and it will save you time when it comes right down to it. Okay, but identify what colors you're going to need on your palette. Next thing is, what tools do I need? You know, the thing about tools is, the thing I thought about is that think about a carpenter or a mechanic, plumber or whatever. They got various tools to do a job, right? They've got, you know, like a mechanic, he's got different wrenches, he's got different screwdrivers. There's a Phillips head, there's a flat head. You know, some of them use crescent wrenches, some of them use, you know, a variety of different tools. And so you want to make sure you got the right tools to use. And there's a couple tools, brushes for one, palette knives are another. What size palette knives do I need? Part of your planning process is going to be, am I going to use palette knives in this painting? Is my painting going to be just palette knives? If so, can I get away with using, say, just one size of a palette knife? Or do I need to reach over here, do I need to use something like this as a palette knife? So those are the things that you need to take in consideration in planning. If I'm going to use some brushes, for instance, like this is a flat brush here, it's long, it's about 1.5 inches, it's wide. Do I need that for blocking in? Or maybe I need something maybe a little smaller than that, you know, another flat. Am I going to use flats, filberts, brights? Am I going to need anything like this that's like a little liner brush, okay, for some fine details? So you need to think about all that as you're planning it out. These are some of the tools that you need. The last question on that list that Dan has is, are there any master artists or artworks you can draw inspiration from? Now note that you should not be painting, copying a master work of art and trying to sell it. You can't do that. But you can learn from these artists, and it's good practice to paint a painting that they may have done 100, 200 years ago. I've done that. I've done a couple little Van Gogh paintings. I've done a couple little Claude Monet style paintings, and I learned so much in doing that. Am I going to sell those? No, I'm not going to sell those. They're just displayed in my home, and I love them. My wife loves them. I mean, they turned out great, but I learned a lot from that process, okay? And it may be, hey, I like this person's style. He's more impressionist, okay? Maybe he's more realistic. I mean, I've seen some artists that you would think it was a photograph. They're that good, that talented. Some are expressionist, and that's totally different too. So what is it that you can pull from maybe another master artist, past and present, that will help you in doing this particular painting? These are some of the things that you should ask yourself. And like I said, I'll put a link to Dan Scott's Draw Paint Academy out there. I encourage you to go check it out. These are just some of the things that I do. And when I follow this, my paintings are more successful. A friend of mine, a coworker that I had many years ago, he always said, plan your work, then work your plan. Okay. And that's key. If you plan it all out and you got the steps laid out as to what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, what do you need, what my painting surface is going to be. Maybe you want to do it on canvas. Maybe you want to do it on some board, MDF board, or maybe it's a canvas panel or something like that. But you got to plan all that out. And when you do that and you work your plan, you will be a more successful artist. I know when I follow that process, my paintings turn out so much better, and I encourage you to do that as well. So thanks, guys, for tuning in. I hope you've learned a little bit. Create your little step-by-step guide, a planning guide that will help you to be a more successful artist. Thanks for tuning in. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate the feedback. If there's something you'd like for me to talk, or maybe there was something in this video that you said, hey, I'd like for you to expound a little bit on something. Because one of the things I want to do and share with you in another video is my whole painting process per se. You know, how do I go about selecting what I want to paint? You know, where's going to be my focal point? Where am I going to put it on the canvas? All that kind of stuff, etc. So stay tuned for that. But anyway, subscribe to my channel because more's coming out. But thanks, guys, so much for being here today. And we'll check you in the next video. Take care, everybody.